going on, guys? Today we're doing something a little bit different. I actually hurt my foot in an ice auger incident. My left foot and my right foot are actually in pretty rough shape, but mainly my left foot. So normally today we're out here crappie fishing, we'll say that. And most of the time I would be hole hopping around, never using a shack. I have a couple of hard-sided shacks that a lot of times I'll have guys jump out in for crappie and walleye and stuff like that. But today we're on the crappie hunt, and instead of hole hopping around, we're gonna sit in the shack. It's about 2 degrees out today, and hopefully catch a whole bunch of crappies. We're gonna talk about kind of the two kinds of crappie bites that happen, both basin bites and weed bites, and how you guys can get on both. Today we're fishing a basin bite, and we only got a couple hours this afternoon here, but stay tuned. We're gonna go into a whole bunch of information on how you guys could be successful all winter long targeting crappies through the ice. Alright guys, today's rod and reel combo. The reel is a Pissy Fun ICX5, which is a very affordable setup. You know, I always hate to preach like super high-end things. So if you guys are looking to get you know, a reel that's great for panfish through the ice, pick up the Pissy Fun ICX5. This is actually on its second year, and if it's on my second year, it'll probably last you a lifetime. Good drag. It's got a collapsible handle, which is nice for storage through the ice, so you don't have to unscrew it or anything like that. And it's got a much longer stem than most rods, so you can obviously use it with gloves. Your gloves aren't constantly getting into the way, like a lot of other reels, which aren't meant for ice fishing. So you guys can actually use coupon code. I'll link it somewhere, or I'll show you the coupon code right here. Get on over to Pissy Fun if you guys want to pick up this reel, or really any other reel they have. I've been exclusively fishing their reels pretty much for a few years now, and it's been great. But sticking with affordability is the Beaver Dam Glass Noodle 32-inch. This rod's like 12 bucks. So between the rod and the reel, you can probably pick this up for well under $40. And you guys got yourself a great setup. I got a crappie just flying right now. Oh boy, there he is. Oh my gosh, I lost him. I was way out of place for a hook set. Oh, we already got some movement. Here we go. Pull it away from him. Slackline me. That did not take very long. You can see him come up there on the graph. This might be a bluegill, honestly, and I can't really tell yet. A lot of times when you're fishing basins like this, ooh, nice crappie to start the day. You know, not a crappie, but a beautiful fish to start, about 11-incher. And look at that hammered tungsten. You know, since I've been using this thing, I'm very impressed with just how fish eat this thing. Absolutely choked down the hatch. And you know, like I said, we're just gonna be camping out today, but we'll kind of talk a little bit about basically the two types of spots where you find a lot of these basin, not basin crappies, but two types of spots you guys can find a lot of crappies in the winter. We're not doing any keeping today, so we'll let him go. I'm already sweating in here. So one of the big things here, you know, when you're fishing for basin crappies is you do not want to startle them with the bait. So you can see there's a fish down here. And instead of just dropping right to him, I'm just going to tail it down. You can see how he's coming. Right when it gets close, running away from him, rod is just going to go absolutely slack. And that is exactly what we like to see. You know, a lot of times if you're dropping down to these fish and it's too sudden, if you let that bait fall too quickly to them, they will get very, very spooked. There's another about 10-inch crappie there. Look at that bait. Gone. Absolutely choked that hammered tungsten. And they are really starting to stack up down there. There we go. We'll let him go. So I'll kind of show you it again here and we'll see how many of them run up. You know, you kind of expect your first few drops to kind of be the most productive typically, because it's basically fishing for fresh fish. You know, when you're sitting still, you're not constantly putting your bait in front of fresh fish unless fresh fish are constantly pushing into you. So I'm kind of getting close. These fish can probably start to see this hammered tungsten. So instead of just dropping it straight down to them, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to walk that jig down, letting it down very slowly. Now a lot of times this is when you start seeing fish kind of coming up to you. So here we got some movement. It looks like a very small fish, but he bit right away. And you do not want to startle that school of fish. Crappies hate being dropped through, right? They hate it when you drop all the way into them or all the way past them. They want that bait camped out above them. There's another Nice one there. Nothing crazy big today, but we were catching them pretty much constantly on that hammered tungsten. And that is exactly what every crappie fisherman wants to see, right below their shack right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop down again here. And especially in the middle of winter, right? When these fish have been pressured, by no means is this a lake that is like a little secret gem. It is small movements that catch fish, right? So what a lot of guys want to do is they want to do these big jig strokes. When in reality, most of the time what the best thing you can do is just barely bounce your rod like this, right? So we're going to tail it down to this one here. He's coming up. The rest of them I've kind of left my screen. So this fish is definitely going to be a little bit more picky. But here he comes. This is going to be a softer bite. So I'm barely jigging through the bite here. He actually didn't bite. So we'll keep walking it away from him. Crappie fishing in the winter is a lot of this cat and mouse game of constantly trying to get fish to chase, right? Same really goes for walleye fishing or any kind of fishing. You want to make fish as absolutely as aggressive as you can, right? Which is, even though I'm doing very small movements with my rod, what I want to do with crappies is keep trying to get them to move up the graph. So here I'm pulling away from this fish. He's not really chasing. So I'm going to tail it back down to him. There's actually a stack coming in a little bit farther down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tail it down to this next grouping of fish. Here you can see we got one coming. I'm going to walk it away from him here. And there he is. That fish came up a bit real soft, but if you can get those fish to chase, you're much more likely to catch them than if you were just constantly kind of keeping your jig at the same height and bouncing it right above them. So what I always want to do is make these fish chase me around. There's another nice eater crappie right there. That hammered tungsten stuck him right in the roof of the mouth. I always talk about how good gold is, and I have no idea why gold is so good, but it's almost always my go-to color. Let him go. Alright, so in the winter there's basically two types of crappie bites that happen. Pretty much, one or the other will happen on most lakes. Some lakes you might have both happening. But basically what those are, one is a basin bite, which is what we're fishing today. And how you get on a basin bite generally starts by looking at the map, right? You're looking at isolated holes between, I would say, 20 and 35 feet of water. You want them to ideally be surrounded by much shallower water, right? And these are the kind of spots that probably most guys fish. It's kind of the bite that you'd see most of the time where guys are fishing for fish that are suspended. Generally these fish will come in, I would say 15 to let's say 25 feet down over this deeper water, and you see them on the graph. It's kind of your typical bite where you see fish, several on the screen at a time when they come through, and they'll rush up at you, right? This is the kind of bite we're fishing today. Now we have all shallower water around us, and this is about a 35-foot hole here, and our fish are coming through about 20 to 25 down right now. And these are the kind of fish that we're picking up. Now, depending on how big this hole is, basically what these fish do in these scenarios is they kind of run around them, right? Now there's certain spots where these fish are more likely to kind of hold up, or kind of, if they're running around the basin, they might, swing through this corner a bit more. And generally what those are is very steep breaks, either coming off of structure, number one, which is exactly what we're fishing now. There's actually a 5-foot deep point about 20 yards this way. So I'm fishing right on a wall right here. And what that does is it keeps those fish from scattering over a large flat spot and keeps them basically pressed up against this wall. So when these fish come through this corner, this deep spot, they're not going to be way over here. They might be some fish this way over the deep spot, but basically this point creates a wall where these fish have to be, if they're going to be in the deep water, right here next to me. So, next time you're going out targeting basin crappies, keep that in mind, that a lot of these fish are generally going to be either in the corner of one of these deep spots, something like this right here, or they're going to be pressed up against a very steep break, like you can see we're fishing right here. There's another one. Doesn't feel too bad. The other kind of bite that we see quite a bit when crappie fishing is a weed bite, and decent eater size one there. And basically the difference is weed bite, that typically fish are much more scattered in a weed bite. So we're fishing basin, and basically how you find fish in a basin is generally you locate the area, you drill out a bunch of holes, and you just go spot to spot to spot, checking with the flash or your draft to see where those marks are suspended. Now, a weed bite, typically what you're doing is you're locating, generally weed bites happen on the biggest, or the safest place to start looking for a weed bite is the biggest shallow flat on a lake or the biggest bay on a lake, kind of generally depths in that, I would say, 5 to 15 feet of water. Generally weed bites happen on very clear bodies of water with a lot of deep water. And if your whole basin of your entire lake is 50 feet, that's not generally an area that's going to be targetable for crappies, number one, and not generally an area it's too infertile for crappies to live over that basin. So when we're fishing these big weed spots, generally what we do is locate them on the map, something that looks something like this right here, a big north bay like this, or a big giant shallow flat like this, and then we start punching holes, right? Weeds in clear water grow deeper because the sun penetrates farther, and those weeds can grow at a deeper depth. So we're going to grid this area out, drill a ton of holes, and then we go spot to spot, hole to hole to hole, fishing and seeing what we catch. A lot of times there's a lot of bluegills in weeds, there's a lot of small perch in the weeds, then obviously crappies like the weeds too. So start on that edge. If you punch a hole and you're super thick with weeds, keep moving out incrementally deeper till you hit that edge, and then follow that down that spot, because generally the edge is the typically where you're going to see the most fish congregate. It's the only real variable. Now generally it's harder to pick out the spot on a weed area. So like we said, drill a ton of holes, and if you have an underwater camera, use it because it can be extremely helpful. A lot of times crappies will school up around thick balls of milfoil. They don't sit right in it, but they'll sit right on the edge of it. Or they like, if you have very thick weeds everywhere, they like where you just have a little pocket of plain sand or no weeds. These are generally kind of the sweet spots in a weed area, but it takes a lot of hole drilling and a lot of searching a lot of times to find these kind of spots. All right, guarantee bite right here. It was a soft bite, but he pounded it. That's why I always say jig through the bite. A lot of times you can get your timing down, or you can almost just set the hook by looking at the graph, kind of when that red line comes screaming out. But if they don't bite, then you're kind of screwed. So I always say jig through the bite instead of just dead sticking that rock. Because if all of a sudden they get up to you and your jig is not moving at all, the likelihood for them to bite it after that is pretty poor. Making chase. There we go. They are riled up now. It's kind of funny, like a lot of lakes, you'll see kind of a real active group of fish come through, and they'll slow down, and you'll see kind of, oh, he lost him in the hole. He's still in the hole though. Oh, there we go. That is gonna wrap up today's little crappie fishing video. Hopefully it was useful to you guys. I gotta get out of here and ice my foot, and hopefully I will be back hole hopping like a madman, like I would ideally like to be in a few days. So word of warning, never start an electric auger on the highest speed in your house while wearing just socks. Should probably have been a little bit more careful, but thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this information was useful to you guys, whether you fish a lake that has a lot of weed bites going on or a basin bite. This is kind of how I go about finding both these bites. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching some fish on the flasher, and hopefully you guys enjoy much more of our ice content to come. We're actually going on a walleye mission here in the next couple days, so hopefully that makes it to YouTube, and please subscribe and stay tuned for more.